What is Shab Yalda, also known as Chelle, Yalda, and Yalda night? It depends who you ask. But first, let's break down what these words mean. Shab means night in Farsi. And so you have Yalda night as a translation from Farsi, Shabe Yalda. What is Yalda? Depending on who you ask or what context you're getting an answer from, the Yalda night or the 40th night is important for a number of reasons. For example, Shab Yalda is celebrated by Iranians for thousands of years, going back at least 2,500 years, and is still celebrated today, celebrated on December 21st, sometimes December 22nd. The Persians will get together and stay up all night, making sure that when the darkest night of the year comes in and the demons and the evil is at its height, the Persians are together celebrating that light will win because they have hope. And the Iranians do things like eat watermelon and eat pomegranates. The things that they eat are red, representing the birth of the new sun on the next day. Chelle literally is the 40th in Farsi, which is the language of the Iranians. Iranians is what they call themselves. Persians is what the Greeks called them, which now ends up in Western literature. So Persians and Iranians, I'm using interchangeably. The Iranians were practicing a religion called Mazda Yazna, the worship of Ahura Mazda. And the religion is now in the West called, again, because of the European influence, Zoroastrianism. So Zoroastrianism is also Mazda Yazna, and in this religion, there is a God, an all-good God, and his name is Ahura Mazda. There's also a lesser God, an evil God, Engra Manu. And so you have this dualism in Zoroastrianism, which represents light versus darkness, goodness versus evil. And in Shab Yalda, what you're seeing is the height of the strength of darkness on the longest night of the year, the winter solstice, and Persians, Iranians, Zoroastrians would stay up all night and stay together, usually getting together around the eldest person in the family and staying up all night to ensure that they were going to see the triumph of light over darkness or goodness over evil through until the dawn, the new sun, represented by things like pomegranate and watermelon. Shab Yalda, for the ancient Iranians, the ones who were Zoroastrian, is a celebration of knowing, having faith and hope that tomorrow will be a new resurrection, that tomorrow, once we're past the winter solstice, we are going to have longer and longer days, more and more light, more and more goodness. Are you starting to see why Christianity is also on the board? In Christianity, near the winter solstice, there's a celebration of Jesus, the birth of Jesus, the birth of the Son, the birth of resurrection, the life having conquered death. The belief in Jesus in the religion Christianity is supposed to be a symbol that you have faith and hope that the evil and the darkness is going to be conquered and that we are going to have a new life through Jesus, through the new Son. And it's celebrated December 25th in Christianity, the birth of the Son, Jesus, in the Holy Trinity. However, 2,000 years earlier, there was already a long-standing tradition originating by Mehr, the sun, God, which were the Persians, that went through the Zoroastrians, which were also the Persians. And when the Jews were conquered in Babylon and then set free by Cyrus the Great, they became the slaves in Rome, who then spread throughout Roman tradition, which later became the Catholic Church, which later became Christianity's main hub in Europe. They spread the idea of Mithraism. And so if you go to ancient temples in Rome, you'll see symbols of Mithraism mixed in with some symbols of Zoroastrianism that originated with the Iranians. And now you also have this similar idea of light or goodness conquering death or darkness. It may or may not be connected. It may just be a coincidence. But what the Persians were celebrating, in other words, the Iranians, through the Mithraism and through the Zoroastrianism, is literally the winter solstice. And so we have a third way we can talk about Shab Yalda. And the third way is to treat the 40th night, to treat the longest night, the most darkness, as simply a celestial event. We are here on planet Earth. It is some kind of sphere. There are 2 different hemispheres. There's also the equator. And because of the transformation of the movement of the Earth, both going around the sun as well as tilting, having a wobble as it goes around the sun, we have 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices represent the 4 different seasons of the year. And in the North Hemisphere, on December 21st, sometimes December 22nd, we have the solstice, which represents the time where you have the least amount of daylight and the most amount of nighttime. And the Iranians, who tracked the sun and its movements, and not just the sun, but all of the things in the celestial sphere, just in case you didn't know, celestial is anything in the sky beyond the atmosphere that we would be breathing, whereas terrestrial is anything on the actual planet. The Persians were tracking everything in the celestial sphere, everything in the sky, including the sun. And the Persians, being great philosophers, mathematicians, astronomers, which all meant the same thing basically at that time, knew exactly when the equinoxes and the solstices were. And Shab Yalda is a celebration of exactly that moment where the longest night exists. And on that 40th night, on that longest night where the evil, represented by darkness, is at its zenith or its most potent, the Iranians or Persians would get together and celebrate that they knew that tomorrow would bring longer and longer days, more and more light, more and more goodness, that essentially their God, the one true God, Ahura Mazda, was going to conquer death and destruction and evil and darkness. And so you see these ideas popping over and over again throughout history. When you're asking about Shab Yalda, it depends who you ask, because you can get the Iranian version, the Mithraism, the Zoroastrian the celestial astronomical version of just it's the winter solstice, or you can get Christianity, which is slightly different, because in Christianity today we are celebrating the literal birth of a literal human being who is fully human but also fully God on December 25th, and believing that he was killed and rose again is how you get into heaven. Whereas in the original context of Yalda, the celebration of light conquering darkness, it's a symbolic imagery, and it's the actual sun in the sky. When you look at the etymology, it's a Syriac word. Yalda literally translates to the rebirth of the sun.